am Tequia, Burt, the editor of the LinkedIn Marketing Blog, and we are on day number 4 of Cannes, and I am delighted to welcome Rob Omodiagbe, Executive Creative Director, APAC at Just Global, to our studio to talk about creativity and B2B marketing. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm so glad to see you. Awesome. Today, we're going to be talking about creativity and B2B marketing. And in general, there's kind of this underinvestment in brand and creative advertising when compared to their B2C counterparts. And they have the reputation of being boring and not sexy because they're producing marketing products that are complex. Do you think that's true? And do you think that B2B marketing and advertising is just not as creative as B2C?
It's an interesting question, and one I've been grappling with for 4 years, the 4 years I've been in B2B. I actually started as a designer and then moved into B2C advertising and spent time there, mostly in New York, where budgets were big.
Right.
And I think ambition was as big as well. I think ambition isn't necessarily what it should be. Expectation isn't necessarily what it should be. I think budgets definitely dictate the kind of work that is doable. I think the idea of creativity as a tool to help engender confidence in someone to purchase a solution is something that isn't always appreciated. I think people spend a lot of time as organizations, and I work a lot with tech, so tech organizations particularly talking about what their products do, and they'll give you product points, but they won't necessarily talk in terms of the problem they are solving for a customer.
So what do you think B2B advertisers can do to sort of catch up creatively to their B2C counterparts?
Well, the biggest thing is actually embrace the idea that creativity matters.
Right.
I'm not someone who talks about creativity for the sake of it. You know, I'm not a painter, although I have painted. You know, I'm not an artist, and I think fine art can talk in those terms. We're solving problems.
Right.
But there is an art to the way we do that.
Right.
And so I guess the thing that clients don't always understand is that there is value in creating engagement.
Right.
Because engagement creates differentiation. Differentiation creates some space in the person you're trying to speak to's mind.
Right.
And what we're trying to do, again, particularly in tech, is to find ways to make a client solution stand out amongst a sea of other solutions that are probably fairly similar.
Right. To expand on that point, what do you think some of the other big challenges are for B2B marketers when it comes to creativity?
Well, I've mentioned budget already. That's an important one.
Right.
I guess I've mentioned client expectation. That, again, is important. Historically, there's been the sense in which B2B is all about programs.
Right.
It's creating programs rather than focusing on, say, purpose.
Right.
And I've nothing intrinsically against, you know, the idea of brand to demand or ABM, and all those things are important.
Right.
But I think you have to also think about, as I said, the fact that people don't suddenly become other than human when they sit at their desk to do work in the morning.
Right.
Whether they're doing their work in an office, as was, or at home, where you could argue that all the influences and all the distractions go way beyond any other brand's B2B communications. So B2B brands now have to realize they're battling against not just other B2B communications from their rival companies, but they're also battling all of the other distractions that people have. They're, Twitter and Snapchat and Facebook and YouTube and the cricket and all of those other things are demanding people's time. Right. And if you're working from home, you can spend time working, obviously, but also the time between that, focusing on things you want to look at. I think we have to get to the point where we're creating B2B communications that people actually want to engage with.
Absolutely. So in terms of creativity, what do you think are the top 3 areas B2B marketers should be focusing on in the next year?
I think craft is important. I think it's one of the areas that we as a jury spend a lot of time talking about. And to come back to an earlier point, some of that is driven by budget, essentially.
Right.
I think craft doesn't just mean things looking pretty, but it means, fine-tuning language. Which means the best writing. It means making sure that you're finding the best ways to communicate an idea. So I think that's an important thing. I mentioned ambition before, and I think that's important. It's clear that B2B needs to do better work. And I think, and there are real tangible business reasons for doing that.
Right.
I think the best work focuses on insights. And so whilst, we spend a lot of time talking about personas, I think we need to go beyond that and talk to real human insights as well, and maybe even and combine those two things so that we're trying to communicate to people based on the push and pulls of not just the work they do, which is obviously important, but also the way they think about the work they do.
Right. So you mentioned budget as a big challenge, and it's interesting because there's a lot of research out there that says that actually being more creative drives profit and it's profitable and it makes your brand memorable. Why do you think there's this perception that it does not matter and that, people don't need to spend money on it?
Sure. I think that case has been made in B2C.
Right.
I think you have various books. It was a great book that came out 2-3 years ago called Lemon that investigated the way in which storytelling actually creates the most creative work, and actually the most creative work that wins at Cannes, for example, is hugely profitable as well. I don't think that case has been made in B2B.
You should check out, I think it's called the B2B Effectiveness Code, and it's all about B2B and all about how creativity drives profit. So there is research out there, and you should check, and you should totally check it out, because I think while this case has been made in B2C, it's also equally important in B2B.
Completely. Yeah. Anything that helps, creative organizations try to make that case to their clients is really useful.
Right. Well, check it out.
I will do.
Awesome. And thank you so much, Rob, for joining us. I really appreciated your time and hope you have a great last day at Cannes.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. And listen, thanks for inviting me along. This is great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.